The woods were dense and the air was thick with the scent of pine. A group of friends, all in their mid-20s, had decided to take a weekend trip to escape the city life. They had rented a cabin in the heart of the forest, miles away from any form of civilization. As they drove deeper into the woods, the trees grew taller and the branches became thicker. It was as if they were driving into another world. The car bounced along the dirt road, and the group chatted excitedly about their plans for the weekend. As they rounded a bend in the road, they saw a small cabin nestled amongst the trees. It was old and weather-beaten, with paint peeling off the walls. The windows were boarded up, and the door hung off its hinges. The group was intrigued by the abandoned cabin and decided to explore it. The cabin was dark and musty, with cobwebs hanging from the ceiling. The air was damp, and the floorboards creaked beneath their feet. As they explored the cabin, they noticed that there were no signs of life. The furniture was old and dusty, and there was no food in the pantry. As they moved further into the cabin, the group began to feel uneasy, as if they were being watched. Suddenly, they heard a sound outside. It was a low growl, like an animal in the distance. The group froze, unsure of what to do. They peered out the boarded-up window and saw a figure lurking in the shadows. It was a man, dressed in camouflage and holding a rifle. He had a wild look in his eyes, like a predator stalking its prey. The group realized that they had stumbled upon something sinister. The man began to taunt them, calling out to them in a gravelly voice. He told them that they were trespassing on his property and that they would pay the price for their intrusion. The group tried to reason with him, but he was beyond reason. He was a deranged hunter, obsessed with tracking down his prey. He had set a trap for them, and they had fallen right into it. As the night wore on, the group tried to escape. They ran through the woods, but the hunter was always one step ahead of them. He had set traps, dug pits, and had even trained his dogs to track them down. The group was exhausted, hungry, and terrified. They realized that they were in a fight for their lives. They huddled together, trying to come up with a plan. That was when they saw it. The hunter's cabin, looming in the distance. It was a fortress, surrounded by barbed wire and guarded by his dogs. The group knew that they had to make a move. They couldn't outrun the hunter forever. They had to fight back. They spent the night preparing, gathering weapons and supplies. They knew that the hunter would come for them, and they had to be ready. The next day, the hunter came. He was relentless, his dogs barking and snarling at their heels. But the group fought back with everything they had. They used traps of their own, setting snares and digging pits. They fought off the hunter's dogs with sticks and rocks. And when the hunter finally came for them, they were ready. They fought tooth and nail, trading blows with the hunter. It was a brutal fight, with no quarter given. But in the end, the group emerged victorious. They had beaten the hunter at his own game. They had survived the night in the woods and had come out stronger for it. As they limped back to their rental car, the group realized that they had been forever changed by the experience. They had been pushed to their limits, both mentally and physically. They had seen the darkest side of humanity, and it had left its mark on them. They drove back to civilization in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. They were grateful to be alive, but they knew that they would never forget what had happened in the woods. Over the next few weeks, the group tried to go back to their normal lives. They went to work, spent time with friends, and tried to forget about the hunter and the cabin in the woods. But they found that they couldn't. The memories of that night kept creeping up on them, haunting them when they least expected it. They had nightmares of the hunter chasing them, of his dogs barking at their heels. It was as if they were trapped in a never-ending nightmare. They had been scarred for life, and there was no going back. As the weeks turned into months, the group slowly drifted apart. They couldn't connect with each other anymore, not after what they had been through. They had all changed, in ways that they couldn't explain. Some of them turned to therapy, trying to work through their trauma. Others turned to alcohol, drowning their memories in a haze of drunkenness. But no matter what they did, they couldn't escape the shadow of the cabin in the woods. Years passed, and the group lost touch completely. They went their separate ways, trying to find some semblance of normalcy in their lives. But the memories of that night never left them. One day, years later, one of the members of the group received a package in the mail. It was a package from the hunter, the same hunter who had tried to kill them all those years ago. Inside the package was a note, written in the same gravelly voice that they remembered so well. The note simply read, "I never forget my prey." The member of the group was shaken to their core. They knew that the hunter was still out there, still hunting. And they knew that they would never truly escape the memories of that night in the woods. The other members of the group received similar packages in the following days. Each package contained a note, a reminder of the hunter's presence. The group realized that they were still being hunted, still being chased by the same deranged hunter who had nearly killed them all those years ago. They tried to come together, to find a way to stop the hunter once and for all. But it was too late. The hunter was always one step ahead of them, always watching and waiting. In the end, the group was forced to accept their fate. They were forever marked by the cabin in the woods, forever hunted by the deranged hunter who lurked in the shadows. He picked the group off one by one. Eventually only one member of the group was left. He didn't try to run. But he wasn't going to give the hunter the satisfaction. He went and bought some rope and alcohol to drown his sorrows away so he could finally put an end to his own suffering. What he didn't know was that the hunter was watching all this time, waiting to strike the very last minute as the final member got enough courage to end it all. And as the time came, the hunter was there to put an end to him, finally finishing his hunt and waiting for his next prey to approach.